wondered when and why we started grooming dogs? You might be surprised to learn that it goes back hundreds, actually thousands of years. I'm going to explore grooming's roots in ancient Egypt, Europe's royal courts, and how modern dog grooming evolved. First, let's jump in our time machine and head back to 6,000 years ago in Egypt. Dog grooming has ancient roots, with some of the earliest evidence coming from around 4000 BCE in ancient Egypt. Egyptians were some of the first people to domesticate dogs, particularly breeds like the Saluki, one of the world's oldest dog breeds, dating back to at least 5,000 years ago. Salukis, sleek and regal, were hunting dogs prized by Egyptian royalty. These dogs were highly valued and often depicted in tombs and carvings, and they were groomed for both hygiene as well as spiritual reasons. Egyptians believed that dogs were sacred, often associating them with the god Anubis, the protector of the dead. Grooming back then wasn't just practical, it was actually symbolic. Dogs would be bathed and treated with scented oils to honor their roles in society. This was the first recorded instance of grooming practices aimed at maintaining a dog's coat and skin. Now let's fast forward a little bit to the Roman Empire from about 500 BCE to the fall of the empire in about 476. Grooming then actually played a huge role in how dogs were treated. Romans were big dog lovers, surprisingly. They used them for hunting, guarding, and even companionship. The Molossus, which was an ancient breed of dog, which is large and powerful and kind of similar to today's Mastiffs, they were actually commonly groomed by soldiers as well as aristocrats alike. Romans developed early grooming tools like combs and brushes that were made from bones and bronze. Grooming their dogs ensured they were clean, healthy, and ready for battle or hunting. They also used natural oils to keep the dog's coat shiny, reflecting the owner's wealth and status. As we enter the Middle Ages, from about the 13th century onwards, grooming practices became more focused on working dogs, especially hunting breeds. And one of the most common ones that were popular back then was the Spaniels. So the Spaniel, which dates back to the 14th century in Spain and France, Spain is, where the name Spaniel comes from, became an essential companion for hunters, known for its ability to retrieve game from the water and from thick brush. Now, these dogs were bred with long, silky coats, and if they weren't properly groomed, their fur could get tangled with mats and twigs and burrs and even dirt during some of these hunts. Grooming, which involved regular brushing and trimming, became absolutely crucial for these breeds to continue with their function and their job. While medieval Europe didn't kind of see the fancy styles we kind of associate with grooming nowadays, maintaining a healthy coat was necessary for working dogs to do their jobs. Now, from this point on, this is kind of where we start to get a little bit more fancy. In the 16th century, grooming evolved beyond practicality and into a sign of wealth and sophistication, particularly with the rise of poodles in France. The poodle, which is bred as a water retriever, became popular in French royal courts, with its distinctive coat requiring regular grooming. The poodle's iconic lion cut, or what we in the grooming world refer to as a continental clip, was actually very functional at first. Fur was left long around their joints, so like their ankles, as well as essential internal organs to keep them warm while swimming in cold water. But the rest of their body was shaved for agility. But during the reign of Louis XVI in the late 1700s, this cut became a lot more decorative. Poodles were often adorned with bows and ribbons and perfumes and became kind of the ultimate symbol of wealth and elegance. Kind of how we associate it a little bit more today. The breed was so beloved that French aristocrats would compete with the most stylish poodle cuts. So you're kind of getting into the idea of these grooming competitions even way back then. This marked the beginning of grooming as more of an art form. Now let's leap forward to the 19th century, where grooming took on a whole new meaning in England, thanks to none other than Queen Victoria. From 1830s up into the 1900s, Queen Victoria's love of dogs, particularly the Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, sparked a grooming revolution. Queen Victoria owned over 90 dogs during her lifetime, which, wow, I own 2 right now and that's a whole lot. But despite the fact that she had so many, she was meticulous about their care. She popularized small breeds like the Cavalier and the Pomeranian, breeds that required frequent grooming to keep their coats clean and elegant. The royal influence trickled down into the British upper class, making dog grooming not just a necessity, but more of a status symbol. By the late 1800s, we saw the first professional grooming services open in London, marking the beginning of a formal dog grooming industry. Also in the late 1800s, actually in 1877 to be exact, the very first Westminster Dog Show was held by a group of sportsmen and dog enthusiasts whose whole purpose was stated to increase the interest in dogs and thus improve breeds, and to hold an annual dog show in the city of New York. So that was kind of their foundation for beginning the Westminster Dog Show. And interestingly enough, when they held this very first dog show in New York, approximately 1,200 dogs entered the show, representing a total of 35 breeds altogether, and they actually even had a miscellaneous class, which was for mixed breeds. As we move into the 20th century, dog grooming exploded in popularity in the United States, likely due to newfound hobbyists being able to showcase their dogs in dog shows. And in the 1920s and the 1930s, there was a rise in dog ownership as well, particularly among middle-class Americans, with breeds like the American Cocker Spaniel, Boston Terriers, and Poodles gaining in popularity. And with that, so did the demand for grooming services. The American Cocker Spaniel, known for its long and flowing coat, became a show ring sensation after World War I. Groomers were tasked with maintaining these lavish coats, leading to the development of new tools and techniques. Electric clippers, first introduced in the 1930s, actually revolutionized grooming, allowing professionals not only to work faster, but more precisely. By the 1950s, the grooming industry was fully established, with specialized salons and grooming competitions emerging across the country. Now, grooming in America was largely influenced by European practices, especially of the French poodle groomers. And when I say that, I'm referring to the people who groomed them. They were French. In the 1950s and the 1960s, there was a rise in the popularity and demand for dog shows, and the Westminster Show actually began being televised in 1948, where the appearance of the dogs became absolutely critical. But since it began to be televised into the average person's home, this led to more elaborate grooming as well, with specific breed standards requiring detailed trimming, scissoring, and styling. This was emulating what was being televised from Westminster. And here we are today. Dog grooming has come a long way from the simple combing in ancient Egypt to high-tech tools and techniques that we use today. Modern day grooming is a blend of tradition as well as innovation. We inherited centuries of grooming practices from Europe and added in new technologies like high-velocity dryers, clipper guard combs, hypoallergenic shampoos, making it easier than ever to keep our dogs looking their best and keeping their skin and coat as healthy as possible. Grooming is an essential part of our relationship with dogs. But if you want to know if being a groomer in today's society is worth it, or how you even become one in the first place, check out this video right here. Let's talk about real professional advice when getting into this industry and joining a historical career.